Good morning. Welcome to the day. Hope you have a good day today. So as Tim says, my talk is going to be about leveraging first-party data for cross-channel marketing campaigns, which is an awfully big mouthful, but hopefully we'll make some sense of it in the next 25 minutes or so. Tim says, my name's Angus Hamilton. I'm CTO at Search Laboratory, a digital agency here in Leeds. And I'll try and speak up a bit, apparently. Are these any better, or is that... Okay. So we do the usual range of SEO, PPC, paid media, programmatic advertising, but we have a particular focus on data and analytics, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. Basically today what I'm going to be talking about is how to use first-party data in your online marketing, but in order to sort of differentiate that, I'm first of all just going to describe what first-party data is in comparison to third-party data. We'll then look at why you should be using first-party data in your marketing, how you can use it, what the benefits are, with a couple of case studies as examples of how we've used it to help our clients. And finally, we'll just wrap up with some next steps and suggestions for how you might take this forward in your own business. As I mentioned, Search Laboratory have a particular focus on data and analytics, and we are a Google Marketing Platform partner, so we sell and support Google Analytics 360. And we also use display and videos 360, Search Ads 360, as well as being Google Premier Partners. And so we have a lot of experience in the whole data analysis and marketing area. So to talk about first and third party data. What is it? Well, basically, first party data, put simply, is data that you collect and you own. It's information you know about your clients and your customers, that you've gathered through your relationship with them, be that their preferences, their interests, the purchase history, things they've bought from you in the past. And it's all information you're going to collect with the relevant permissions because you're obviously doing it in a first-party relationship. You've got that one-to-one relationship with your clients. Because it's all about their interests in relation to your particular business, this information should be relevant, and assuming you keep it up to date, it should also be reliable information. So the key thing is, it's everything you need to know about your clients in order to produce marketing which is really relevant and targeted to them. By contrast, third-party data is traditionally data that's been collected by the advertising platforms, by cookies, by toolbars, by data aggregators. And whilst it's still accurate, it's still information about individuals, it tends to be more generic. So we'll find that this information is less specific about your particular business area, but it's just more about people in general. It's also becoming harder to collect this data. We're all well aware of GDPR and the impact that that's had on various elements of our business, and also the general just awareness about data privacy, some high-profile cases recently of data being used for purposes that people didn't perhaps expect. People are much more aware of this now, so it's much harder to use third-party data than it has been in the past. Just to bring this to life with a real-world example, this is me according to Google. It's not wrong, it's correct. I have a child, I'm a parent, I have a family, I have a home which has a garden. Because I'm a parent, I'm interested in education. I'm not actually 18 to 44, but I'll take that with gratitude, and thank you, Google. Give me 5 years there, I think. But it's kind of generic. It's all true, as I say, it's correct information, but it's not going to tell you where I like to go on holiday. By contrast, a really great example of using first-party data is what Amazon do. And this is the Amazon homepage when I log into Amazon. You'll see across the bottom it's got discovering innovative products, computers and accessories, smart home devices, all the sorts of things I'm interested in. I'm the stereotypical CTO. I like technology and geeky products. And across the top, it's got a range of printer cartridges, which my printer loves to eat at an alarming rate, but they are all the exact model of cartridge that go on my printer. So that's really focused first-party data that Amazon have collected about me and are now using to enhance my experience. Hopefully that illustration sums up why you should be using first-party data in your online marketing. But if you wanted a bit more evidence, a recent survey suggested that advertisers who use data in their marketing will see both revenue increases, so they'll get more revenue from their existing customers of up to 20%, but they will also see cost savings of up to 30%. And we'll talk a bit about how you make those revenue increases and cost savings by using this data. Two things to summarize how you do that. First of all, you create audiences with the data. You say you target your marketing to very specific needs, so you segment your customers into different groups and say you're going to show them different ads depending on where they are in their purchasing cycle or what type of customer they are or what their interests are. And you can also reduce your advertising spend by blocking advertising to people who are not so relevant. And this may be people who are just not relevant to your business. It may be people who are actually really bought into your brand and you don't want to spend money on PPC brand ads on them because basically they're already bought into your brand. You don't need to spend money advertising to them. So there's two just high-level ways that we're talking about here, using that data to target your audiences and to reduce your spend. What do you need to do this? Well, you need three things really in order to enable first-party data in your online marketing. The first thing you need, not surprisingly, is the data. So when I'm talking about the data here, we're talking about a mixture of online and offline data. So online data might be data from your analytics platform, what pages people have visited, what their activity on your website has been, or within your app, or even whether they've got your app. You can then merge that with offline data because typically your analytics platform won't have things like purchase history and other demographic information about your clients which may be relevant. So there's a job there to bring your online and offline data together to create the most effective marketing segments. The second thing you need is technology, and the reason we say this is that there is a process involved here. You take your analytics data that you gather through your analytics platform, your CRM data, you bring that together, you need a warehouse or some means to bring that together, and then you need the ability to analyze that data to create the segments which are obviously specific to your business and your domain, and push it back out to the advertising platforms. And I've got a slide and a couple of slides that will just show how that works. Third thing you need are the skills to do all that. So you need the technical skills to set up your analytics correctly, to pull your CRM data into your warehouse, do the analysis, so you need some sort of data analysis skills, some knowledge of your business, and the ability and the technology to push it back out to the advertising platform. So I've talked quite a bit about, this is all about creating audiences, but I thought it would just be worth explaining what I actually mean by an audience in this context before we go into the sort of example case studies. So put simply, an audience in online marketing terms is a pool of users built from your online and offline data, and they're segmented by a number of characteristics. So we may well take all our customers and we look at their behavior and we may segment them by how much they spend, how recently they visited the site, maybe which pages they've visited, whether they've signed up for the app or they've created an account, whatever it may be. The thing that allows us to segment them into different target markets. Having built those audiences, we can then use them to target our online activity. So we can push that back into display advertising, into search advertising, remarketing, even website personalization. And we can give each person, or each group of users, each audience, a different experience based on their particular segmentation. And that's really the key. Those different experiences ensure that they get the best possible experience from your business, are more likely to spend more money or to convert, or conversely, we don't waste money on people who we think aren't going to convert. So, how do I create an audience? Well, as I mentioned, this is where it gets a little bit technical. So we start with feeding our data into our analytics platform. Obviously, we are a Google marketing partner, so I apologize, this is very Google-centric, but you'll get the idea. We've take the data from our website, from our browsing history, our app usage, and put it into our analytics platform. If it's Analytics 360, that actually automatically goes into BigQuery, which is a big help. And then what we do is we pull the CRM data also into BigQuery, a data warehouse, you can read for that, and we join the data together so that we get an overall approach, a single view of the customer in the data warehouse. Probably worth mentioning at this point, from a privacy point of view, we certainly don't want to be storing personal information in the analytics platform, and when we're doing that joining and analysis, we want to make sure it's all done in an anonymized way. That's quite hard to say. you want to just make sure that data analysts can look at the data without any fear of them actually finding anything out about anybody as an individual person. So we do the analysis in the data warehouse. We segment our customers into the different audiences, and we actually push that back into the analytics platform. And analytics has the capability of creating any number of audiences that you want to define within the system, and in turn that will then push it out to the various ad platforms. So in the case of Analytics 360, that'll go out to Search Ads 360, Display Video, and Optimize. If you're just using standard analytics, you can still do this, and it will just support Google Ads, and that's Google Ads text ads and remarketing and search network, display network. So there are opportunities there, really depending on which platform you're using to do this. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how you can use the data that you've got to create an audience and get it into the advertising platforms. So now we're going to look at a couple of case studies of how we've used this to help clients. First example, this is a retail client, fashion website. They offer free deliveries and returns, and they're, like every other business in the world, I think, probably looking to maximize their ROI from existing customers and get new customers as well to keep the business turning over and growing. So what do we do with a client like this? Well, I said before that creating an audience is about profiling your customers, putting them into different segments. The first thing we do is decide how we're going to do that, what attributes of the customers we're going to use to do that process. And here we've got things like how recently they have purchased something, whether they purchase frequently, how much they've spent generally, whether they buy in the sale, how often they return something, bearing in mind we have free returns, that could be quite a significant factor, and whether they've installed the app. And we basically take all our data, we analyze it, and we bunch everybody into audiences based on these attributes. Our first audience is what we call our VIPs. These are our favorite customers, our best customers. These guys buy very often. They have bought frequently as well. They're active on the site at the moment. They tend to spend £200 or more in an individual basket, which is fantastic. Sometimes they buy in the sale, but it's not a major factor. They'll buy whatever they want, basically. They're not swayed by the sales too much. Again, sometimes they'll return stuff, but then everybody does. And they've installed the app, and we know from our analysis that actually app users are more bought into the brand. They're more committed to us, and that's a really good indicator that they're a really strong customer. So we get this pool of users, we push it into the analytics platform and then out to the advertising platforms. And we start by sending them some specific display ads that are just for this audience. So whenever we've got a new season, a new launch, new products coming into store, we show them some display ads that invite them to come and have a look at the new range. We know that they're likely to buy from us, so if they see we've got something new, it might just pull them in and ask them to come and have a look at our website. We do this with what we call a loose frequency cap, so we're not concerned too much about how often we show them the ads. If they see an ad every week, it's a great reminder of the brand, it just keeps them in touch with us. We're not too concerned that although we're spending money doing this, we know we will probably get some business from them, so it's worthwhile to spend that money. We have a refer a friend scheme, and I suppose using their own first-party data, they know all about their friends. They will hopefully refer the friends that are like them, and will hopefully spend a lot on our site. So we will advertise the refer a friend scheme to them. But we will exclude them from brand PPC. If they're searching for our store online and the PPC ad appears, we don't want them clicking it and wasting our click spend. We may as well just have them click the organic result because we know they're going to click on us because they're a valued customer. And finally, we create similar audiences. So this does use the third-party data, but hopefully we'll send some advertising to people who are like them from a third-party profile point of view, and we'll attract some new business into the company that way. Our second audience are a bit like our VIPs, but they're what we call lapsed VIPs, and we all have these if we're in a sort of retail environment. They're people who have historically spent a lot with us. They have perhaps been frequent purchasers, but recently they've not bought anything and they've not been on the site, and we don't quite know why. So we can segment those again using the attributes that we talked about, the only difference being that their recent activity is much lower, and they're therefore in a lapsed state. For these guys, we're going to show some display ads again. We're going to give them a huge one-time discount. So we might show some ads that say 25% off if you buy something within the next 30 days or something like that. We may well promote them to use the app. We know that that's a sign of buying into the brand, and once they've got the app, they're more likely to use it and buy more things on their phone. So we'll send them some ads on that. But we will sort of cap this slightly more tightly. If after a month or two of doing this sort of advertising, they're not coming back, then sadly we've probably lost them as a customer, and we want to treat them differently and stop marketing to them because we're basically just wasting our spend. The third audience we've got are regular returners. Sadly, these aren't people who return to the site regularly, these are people who send stuff back regularly. So they're 75 to 100% returns. To add insult to injury, they only spent 33 quid in the first place. So the profit on this is probably going to outweigh the postage and admin fees of actually restocking and all the rest of it. So looks like we might have a few regular returners in the audience actually, but anyway. These guys we probably don't want to advertise to. We want to block them from PPC. We want to not show them display ads. So we'll put them in a negative audience, which means they are excluded from our advertising. And hopefully over time they'll stop seeing the adverts and might actually go away in the nicest possible way. Sorry, was that a bit brutal? I don't know. Anyway, so that's how this works in a retail environment, and hopefully, I mean, a lot of that equates to what you may have historically done in email marketing. The difference here really being it's about creating those online audiences which attract people when they're online, obviously. This doesn't just apply to retail, though. You can do this in a more of a B2B sort of environment. So perhaps you're a business that sells, I don't know, let's say software. And it's got a longer lead cycle, typically anything from a few weeks to a few months before somebody buys. Again, you want to grow your business. The lead gen cycle for this looks quite complicated, but in essence, it is somebody visits your website, they fill out a form, eventually speak to sales, they'll be qualified in or out, and then they'll go on to either purchase the software or not. It's a fairly common business sort of cycle. Sort of remarketing 101, the first scenario is somebody visits your site and then leaves your website, create an audience for those guys, remarket to them, try and get them to come back. Everybody does that at the minute. I'm sure you've all been on a website, you've looked at something, and a few days later you've seen an ad for that website pop up. That's just kind of standard remarketing, and that's absolutely the first thing we should be doing if we're getting into using this kind of data. Really simple way to get started. If they fill out the form, put fake details in, you might actually be quite annoyed by them because it is annoying, but you probably want to do a bit of remarketing to them because if they've taken the trouble to fill the form out and download the brochure, there's some interest there. They've done it for a reason. So maybe you could remarket to those guys and say, you know, you could have a free trial, or we can have a no pressure chat. They might just be worried about the sort of sales pressure that comes sometimes from these situations. So again, for a tight frequency cap, don't spend too long on it, but try and get them back and find out who they really are. If somebody does come through to sales, you speak to them and they are qualified out, they just haven't got the budget, they're the wrong type of customer, they've got unrealistic expectations, we can put them in a negative audience and we can stop advertising to them, stop PPC on them, and save some money again. Conversely, we've spoken to somebody, we've sent a proposal, they're on the verge of converting, so we might just want to put them in an audience where we start showing them the latest case studies, the latest awards, whatever it may be, something just to hopefully push them over the line. We win the business, fantastic. Again, stop advertising to them. I've had this personally and it's really annoying. You go on a website, you buy something, and then you chase around the internet for the next 3 months by that company advertising the thing you just bought. It's a waste of their money and it's a waste of my time. So once somebody's bought something from you, you can create an audience and exclude them from advertising. Conversely, if you don't win the business for some reason, unfortunately they go elsewhere, you can put them in an audience actually and maybe remarket to them in 6 months or a year's time, just briefly, just to see if they're happy with what they bought as an alternative. If you're thinking about software or something like that on a subscription, it may be that we can get them back after a year's time. I just want to finish with what I I've called an advanced example, I guess, because all these audiences relate to information that you've collected and you know about your customer, and by definition they rely on a certain period of time elapsing. So you don't know the average spend of somebody until they've bought a few products off your website, or you don't know how, whether they're a frequent purchaser until they've purchased a few times. So some of the projects we've been working on recently have been involved in using the machine learning in Google Cloud to actually start making predictive guesses, for want of a better term. And I'm not going to pretend that machine learning is the answer to everything and knows it all precisely, but it's better than nothing. It's more accurate than just a guess. So we can look at somebody who comes to our website and makes their first purchase, and by combining that purchase with lots of other information on the website, their sort of behavior on the website, we can start to make a prediction about what their lifetime value may be. Just to give you a really simple example, in a fashion industry, somebody comes onto your site and spends £200 on a dress. You might think they're a great customer. Actually, it's a one-off purchase, a special event. They never come back again. So they're not that great a long-term customer. Somebody comes and buys a pair of trainers, but signs up to be a member on the website. They might actually be a much better long-term customer because they're going to buy trainers every 6 months, every year, and over the next 2 years they may well spend £500 with you on various pairs of trainers. Using this sort of machine learning techniques, we can analyse all the different signals, and the more signals you get, the better, to determine whether or not we think the person landing on your site is going to be a high-value customer. So just to wrap up, in terms of first-party data, I've talked about using CRM, I've talked about using analytics. You can also start thinking about other sources of first-party data you've got, so things like events, loyalty schemes are a fantastic source of data, competitions, obviously all collected with consent, but if you've got information about your clients, try and use it. And that's really my next steps. Identify what first-party data you've got and start using it. The sooner you get going, the better you'll get at your online marketing, and then expand your data sources over time. So don't try and create the perfect data warehouse to start off with, but start adding in more data from different sources as you're able to merge it in, and then you can refine your analysis and get more targeted and more accurate with your audiences. So in summary, gather the data from both online and offline behavior, use all the tools and technology that's available out there to bring it together into a single view, use data analysis to then segment that data into different audiences, feed them into your ad tech, and then test the results, rinse and repeat. And that last bit, just keep repeating, try different things, try different audiences. There's lots and lots of data you've got there, so use as much of it as you can to create different audiences and see which ones work. And hopefully you'll have some great results. And that's it. Thank you very much. I would say questions, but we're not doing it.